the amount of redemption is going to increase with 7 cents. And the reason for that is right now distributors pocket about $31 million in unredeemed cans. So that tells me that people are not taking their cans to the redemption center. I believe that 10 cents would do that. Doubling the handling fee would increase redemption centers, and I want to keep all retail exempt. Sanitary issues is front and center.
Yes.
And I think most people think that forcing grocery stores to handle cans is not very clean.
Well, let me understand what you're saying, man. I
Yep.
didn't mean to mischaracterize your position earlier.
Yep.
Are you saying then that we should depend more if you're able to get this 10-cent handling fee into law, that the grocery store should not then be responsible for handling any of the used cans?
If they don't want to, I think they should have the option not to have to handle the cans.
Okay. So, well, I'm glad actually that's drawing some attention out here. And I'm old enough to remember when the ditches were full of cans.
Yeah.
I mean,
and what's interesting with that is it was first created in 1978.
Yeah.
So on the campaign trail, I noticed that there was a more emotion behind the older generation in regards to this issue. They saw the change. They saw the behavior change front and center. So I completely understand why it's an important topic to.
Immediately. And a lot of people opened redemption centers. Maybe it was a family thing. I remember a husband and wife and their little kids had one, but they couldn't make it work. There just wasn't enough money there.
Yep.
And the legislators seem to be trying to have it both ways, which happens sometimes when you're a legislator. In that, they wanted these redemption centers, but on the other hand, they didn't want to raise the cost of pop that much, because that would tick off the grocery stores and the beverage distributors. But there has to be a come to Jesus moment here as far as these redemption centers are concerned.
Yep.
I mean, because what we're doing now obviously isn't working.
Yep.
I mean, if a penny was barely getting by 43 years ago or however long it's been, it's really not working now. I don't know if I guess there is a redemption center here in Fort Dodge, but that's interesting.
So that's why my first position right now is the 10-cent position. My secondary position would be to get rid of it altogether, because this idea that I do believe human behavior has changed. Our citizens' behavior has changed. So if let's say worst case scenario, if we did get rid of the bottle bill altogether and we started seeing problems, well, then we can always come back to it. So
yeah, well, what would happen, do you think, if you just got rid of the bill? I mean, not you personally, but if the bill, if there was no longer a requirement to redeem your cans?
Well, most people would be throwing them away, but I would like to look at other recycling options to make it more accessible for people to recycle. But I haven't completely thought that part of it out.
That's fine.
As much.
That's fine. We'll move away from that. This is AM 1400 KBFD, The Voice of Fort Dodge. Our guest is newly elected Senator Jesse Green. What committees are you on?
Oh, Senator boy. Green? There's 8 of them. My plate's going to be full.
8 committees?
8 committees.
Boy, the new guy comes around and they dump stuff on him right away.
No, I'm really grateful for it, because the list is Ways and Means, Veterans Affairs, Labor, Ag, Natural Resources, Health and Human Services, Ed sub-appropriations, and Rules. So, I look forward to, I'd say half of those committees, I feel like I can bring something right away to some of the topics that are being talked about.
All right.
And the other ones, I'm going to have to take a little more passive approach coming in, and to especially HHS. Some of those issues I have not had anything to do with. So, but that's such an important committee, and I look forward to getting to work on that.
Well, we're still trying to work with Representative Meyer to make sure that mentally ill people are taken off the streets before they hurt somebody, like tragically happened with Reverend Al Henderson here a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
That was a long story that exposed a deep fault in our laws. And I don't know if Health and Human Services covers that, but we badly need some sort of center for not just the homeless, but the mentally ill, who may be either self-destructive or, tragically again in the case of Reverend Henderson, homicidal.
Yeah.
The man accused of killing Pastor Henderson, as we know now, had a long history of disturbed behavior. And we just can't have somebody like that running around like that.
Yeah.
You know, the police couldn't do anything. The county sheriffs, well, we're not trained hospital people. We can throw him in jail overnight, but he's going to get out in the morning. You know, what kind of? And we had to, by our own failure to act, Pastor Anderson's dead, and I thought he was a real credit to our community. So, if Health and Human Services can do something about that, I hope you'll look into it, because that means a lot to people in this area.
Certainly. With mental health, that's front and center on top issues, and I think how we fund mental health is the starting point as far as what's the best way of funding it. And we're one of 2 states that fund it through property taxes. I'd like to see it on the general fund. And I think Reynolds Invest in Iowa Act would address that. Her vision is to increase the sales tax by a penny and offset it with income and property tax relief, but also fund mental health the way that we need to. Also, last night I just met with a doctor, pediatrician in Boone, and he was commenting how we need to incentivize psychiatrists to move to set up practice in rural Iowa. And that's going to be a key component to this issue as well.
This has nothing to do with Senator Green, but I must condemn in the strongest possible words some of these pro-Trump people who have just broken down a glass door of the Capitol building, and they're brawling with officers in the corridor of one of the most sacred buildings in our country. The police have actually had to draw their weapons and order the people back. This is not democracy. This is something else entirely, and it's not our way. Again, I need to disassociate Senator Green from my remarks, but this is something that we need to know about. There's no excuse for this behavior at all. None.
No, and I hope there's begins to be some more civility in our dialogue and stuff. But I think from my vantage point, at the root of this problem is our society has a truth problem, and we don't.
But I'm the doctor of truth, so you're okay in
that's
here.
why. So that's it's pretty scary when society doesn't know what to believe anymore for our source of information. And was there election fraud? Was there not? Evil exists. So I think there's some form of fraud that is in probably every election, but that's why I love the Electoral College so much, is because if and when there is fraud, that should not change the will of the people and who the president is going to be. And so I'm really proud of Iowa's elections and what we have control of.
You're a religious man, aren't you, Jesse?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I don't know about you, but to me, evil is a spiritual force that is readily seen on Earth, not with the naked eye, but you can see the influence of evil, and the evil one, if you will. People don't usually talk about things like this. I don't on the radio, but I do believe I do believe in evil, and I have seen the results of evil many times in my life. And it's a dark force, and we need to keep pushing back on that in our daily lives, and not by screaming at each other necessarily. But we have to. I really think that the World War II generation, having seen what happened in Europe, in my generation in Vietnam, we knew there was evil. The veterans, especially the Second World War, knew there was evil. They had no doubt, and that spurred them in their lives. It was they really were a great generation. Senator Jesse Green is our guest. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Do you mind if I invite callers to give you a ring and ask you a question?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, if you want to ask Senator Green a question, it's 515-955-1400, 515-955-1400. I want to go back to budgetary concerns regarding mental health, or really anything as far as the budget is concerned. Senator Kreinbrink came up with this great term here a couple of years ago. He was going to deappropriate things. Deappropriate. Does that mean cut services? Yes, it does, but Senator Kreinbrink preferred deappropriate. So here we are. So the question I have is, Republicans usually like to deappropriate. Are you in that crowd? Do you believe we're spending too much money yet? And if you do believe that, How then can we determine the best way forward as far as mental health care is concerned?
Well, I usually think most of government's problems are generally spending problems, but one thing I appreciate in this environment is we're going to see an increase in state revenues. Not very many states in the United States are going to be able to say that coming out of this COVID situation. Are we going to have tough conversations this year? Yes, but I'd much rather be in Iowa than in a state like California, where I saw one report that they could see a 15% decrease in revenue. Could you imagine those conversations in the appropriations? So
Well, again, we're not California. They have their
No.
own sets of problems out there.
So yeah, but we need to. It's always good to have a good grasp on the
It's always
30,000
good
foot
to have
view.
a standard. Yeah.
And so in Iowa, I think you're going to see some better conversations, and I don't foresee drastic cuts in anything. But education is going to be the hot topic, and
Education's always a hot topic.
it's 54% of the budget.
Yeah.
So I saw a report the other day that showed a 6,000 decrease in enrollment in public schools. So we're gonna have to look at the formula and see how do we have to change the formula? What does that look like? And if you noticed, I'm not on the education committee. God bless that committee. They got a tough road ahead. But I hope everybody enters into the conversations gracefully and with
Well,
an open mind.
Representative Scrapster over there, I don't know if he's coming back this year because I actually predicted that Joni Ernst would not be reelected. And of course, Senator Scrapster or Representative Scrapster is a true blue Republican, and apparently that offended. I always kind of wondered, what, you're wearing colors now, or what? What are you doing? I don't know if the Scrapster will be here much this year. I hope so, because he's a good guest and he's a very sharp guy. But he's been talking about education spending, and the Republicans have been talking education spending for years. As a matter of fact, Governor Branstad was famously at war with all the public employee unions from day one of his administration.
Mm-hmm.
And he must have been doing something right, because he was the governor of the state of Iowa for 30 years. And we've had mainly Republican governors, with the exception of Vilsack, who did not much, and he's going to be out there as Secretary of Agriculture, not doing much either. But anyway,
don't forget Culver,
well, I guess Culver, well, yeah,
who slashed the education budget by 10%.
Yeah, and stabbed some of his fellow Democrats in the back, and then went, "Why did I get defeated?"
So that's what happened. That's exactly what happens when you overpromise and
underdeliver. That's exactly what happened with Big John.
Yep.
I don't think he was smart enough to be the governor anyway. He's a nice enough guy. He was here in town a few times. I spoke with him, but he was. Anyway, so deappropriation.
Mm-hmm.
Well, did you run to go to Des Moines and cut?
I ran to make sure that our services are the necessary services are funded correctly, and in education, I believe that's where this conversation, the core of this conversation, is going.
Sooner or later.
Yeah, and the circumstances have changed. COVID has changed the circumstances in every conversation, and the same is true with education. I believe that the formula is going to have to be looked at and readjusted accordingly. And I believe the answer to that personally is school choice, allowing the dollars to follow the child and the parent in whatever environment that they see best. I believe that's the simplest and best way to go about funding education. But that's how I come into this conversation. But we'll see how things play out.
You've been talking with Sexton, haven't you? For the deappropriator. By the way, Senator Deappropriator will be here on Friday along with Representative Ann Meyer. It's always a good thing. And I understand you have a interview with Rapid Rob Jones early in the morning here on KBFT, so that'll be great.
Yeah.
All right, Senator Jesse Green, newly elected Senator Jesse Green has been our guest. You're certainly welcome here anytime, Senator Green. I hope you can come here and be answerable to your constituents.
Certainly.
A lot of people make this about me. Oh, he's sneaky. We don't want to go on his. But the real point is to allow the constituents a chance to ask you questions.
No, I appreciate the opportunity, and it's an honor, and I hope to always be known as readily accessible and responsive.
Good to hear. Senator Green, thank you for being here. Steve King, yes, the soon-to-be former congressman, is coming up in the next half hour.
Divine Intervention is online at yourfortdodge.com, on Twitter at JMike1400.
Listen to this radio station on the radio.com app. Discover and enjoy your favorite music, news, and talk radio from live stations across the country. Listen anywhere on all mobile and home devices with the radio.com app.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
With your KVFD News Update, I'm Rob Jones. A Webster County man is facing first-degree arson charges stemming from an incident on December 17th. Police say that 40-year-old Fort Dodge resident Patrick McGuire poured gasoline on a woman and all over a residence after trapping the woman under a mattress. McGuire is accused of then filling the home with propane after opening a propane tank. The woman was able to escape the home. A group of citizens who are disgruntled over animal control issues here in Fort Dodge have banded together. Around 1,500 people have signed a petition demanding better animal control resources. Currently, the city contracts animal control out to Webster County. One of the major complaints that's been cited has been the response time. With a coverage area as large as the entire Webster County area, the response time can take hours. The Fort Dodge City Council discussed the animal control issues at Monday's budget workshop. The council discussed finding a way to increase allocated funding to animal control in the way of around $17,000. One petitioner who spoke with me under the condition of anonymity said they feel like, quote, the city is paying for a service that we are not getting, end quote. A series of federal tax breaks are now available for many Iowans who took a financial hit from last summer's derecho. Radio Iowa's OK Henderson has more.
The new law waives penalties for individuals who make early withdrawals from their retirement savings to pay for storm-related expenses. Businesses in the derecho zone that had to close temporarily but kept paying their employees are now eligible for a tax credit. Low-income workers that had their hours cut will be able to use their 2019 income to calculate tax credits they otherwise would lose or see dramatically reduced. There are some changes in the deduction for charitable giving as well to encourage donations that support derecho recovery. Radio Iowa, I'm OK Henderson.
Wright County Public Health issued a statement on Tuesday regarding COVID-19 vaccinations. Sandy McGrath, the Wright County Public Health Director, said that Wright County Health is working with facilities there to allocate vaccine doses to those in the Phase 1A priority population. McGrath went on to say that Wright County will provide updates for other priority groups once they receive more allocations of the vaccine. McGrath says the vaccine is only available currently to the 1A priority population, but it's anticipated that by the middle of this year, the vaccine will be available to all who want to receive it. Wright County Public Health reminds everyone to practice mitigation measures until the vaccine is available to all. For KVFD from the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Rob Jones.
This is AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I'm Michael Devine. It's 2:34. Yeah, we're going to have still Congressman Steve King in the next half hour. He has written a book, and we're going to talk with him. He's in the process of writing a book, and I don't think he's got a publisher yet. Or maybe, I don't know. I'll have to let him explain it to you. First of all, in the weather forecast, it's 36 degrees. There's a slight chance of snow later on. Typical January weather, if you ask me. Overnight, cloudy with a low of 21. Tomorrow, some fog, otherwise cloudy with a high of 32. Friday, cloudy with a high of 30. Saturday, mostly cloudy with a high of 28. Sunday, partly sunny with a high of 27. Monday, it'll be partly sunny with a high of 30. Tuesday, sunny with a high of 31. Right now in town, again, 36 degrees. Obituaries this hour brought to you by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. Steve Torkelson, who I've known for quite a long time, Steve W. Torkelson, 72 years old of Fort Dodge, died last Saturday. There will be a funeral services for Steve and that's happening at 10:30 in the morning Saturday here in town, with burial at St. Olaf Cemetery. Arnold Gene Madsen has passed away. He passed away last Monday. He was born in Fort Dodge, of course, and baptized into the First Covenant Church here in Fort Dodge. Arnold Gene Madsen has passed away at the age of 85. Obituaries this hour brought to you by Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services at 1615 North 15th Street, Fort Dodge. You may contact Gunderson Funeral Home and Cremation Services by calling 515-576-7128 or online at www.gundersonfuneralhome.com. It's 2:35 at AM 1400, KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. Again, Congressman Steve King will be with us in just a few minutes. Right now, with a look at the closing market report, here's Dwayne Murley.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. March corn up 3 1/4 at $4.95. May up 3 1/2 cents at $4.96. July up 3 1/2 at $4.94. September up 3 1/2 at $4.55 1/2. January soybeans up 15 1/4 cents to close at $13.65 1/4. March up 14 1/2 at $13.61 1/2. May up 14 cents at $13.60 1/4. July up 11 1/2 at $13.47. Soybean meal up $7.90 a ton at $4.43.30. February live cattle down a nickel at $1.15. April up 17 cents at $1.19.27. January feeder cattle down 90 cents at $1.35.77. March down 85 at $1.36.57. February lean hogs down $1.15 at $69.77. April down $1.10 at $73, and May down 85 cents at $77.60. I'm Dwayne Murley.
Looking for a quick, healthy dinner for the family tonight? Think pork. Cuts with either loin or chop in their names are an especially good source of lean protein, and ounce for ounce, deliver the kind of fuel you want powering your body. Delicious, nutritious pork.
Is that you, Congressman? Hello.
Hey, Mike.
Yeah.
Marlo B, real quick. Welcome back. You sound great.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Good luck to you. I love you, Mike.
All right. Thank you, Marlo. Thank you so much.
The idea of insurance made for me is almost riveting.
Big fan of beige?
I find other neutrals too unpredictable.
That's cool. Liberty Mutual's just here to protect your home with customized insurance.
And here we've got my doorstop collection.
Only pay for what you need at libertymutual.com.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Hi, my name is Suzanne Geis. I tried everything to control my anxiety. Nothing worked. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't run my business. Anxiety paralyzed me, aging me terribly. I heard about Mark Patrick anxiety seminars from friends that were successful at Mark Patrick's weight loss and stop smoking seminars. My friends bragged about how easy they stopped smoking with Mark and how easy it was to lose weight. I went to Mark Patrick anxiety seminar, and now I always hear Mark's voice in my head. I really love that. My anxiety is gone. I can sleep. I have patience. My life is back. In fact, I'm Supergirl again. Thank you, Mark Patrick Seminars.
Join Mark Patrick's hypnosis seminar and eliminate unwanted anxiety, stress, negative thinking, even panic attacks for only $49.99 guaranteed or your money back. The End Anxiety, Stop Smoking, and Weight Loss Hypnosis Seminars will be Thursday, January 28th or Saturday, January 30th for the Fort Dodge area. Due to coronavirus, the seminars will now be online live with America's hypnotist, Mark Patrick, in the comfort and safety of your living room. Register now at markpatrickseminars.com.
We've been waiting for COVID-19 vaccines to be developed. Now, waiting for them to get to us. But you can do more than wait. You have powerful ways to help slow the spread right now and protect your family and loved ones too. Here's how. Watch your distance. Stay at least 6 feet away from folks you don't live with. It's risky to be indoors with them too. And of course, avoid crowds. Also, wear a mask. CDC reports masks protect the people who wear them and folks around them. And wash your hands using soap and water for 20 seconds. And do it frequently. Vaccines won't make COVID go away overnight, but they give us a real chance to finally overcome it. As long as we keep watching our distance, wearing our masks, and washing our hands.
Learn more about vaccines at cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
Michael Devine at AM 1400
In the name of justice and the American way of life.
with 60 rounds of freedom.
That's right. I'm the doctor of truth as well, but you knew that. I mean, I haven't been gone that long. I was sick with COVID, of course, for quite a while. Actually, it was pneumonia. But I'm fully recovered, and I never felt better in my life, and I'm ready to get on with life. And I feel genuinely blessed that I've been afforded this second chance, because I'll tell you, I learned a lot about COVID and the things that happen when you get COVID, and how little we really know about COVID still at this stage. I don't, I have faith in the vaccines, and as soon as it's my turn, I'll happily sit in the chair and get a vaccine. I'll get a shot right now. No, I don't suspect a government plot to turn us into zombies because, the virus and COVID and vaccination, and, it's just insanity. There's some genuine insanity going on in Washington, D.C. right now. I'm ashamed of my country. Of course, I've been, my thinking hasn't changed on social mores or morality. It's never changed, because I believe as an old Catholic, I'm not so much a Catholic today, but I grew up that way, and it's still with me, that these truths are eternal. And if they're eternal, that means they're eternal. That means we don't change certain things, because human beings aren't allowed to change certain things when it comes to spiritual matters or the implication of our personal behavior due to these spiritual matters in these spiritual direction. So that's been my thing for a long time. I'm trying to say that I'm a traditionalist. And to see people calling themselves traditionalists or calling themselves conservatives crashing into the congressional building today so that police had to draw their weapons. I have never seen or heard anything like this in my life. Police having to draw their... Uh-oh,
Hello,
easy.
Mike.
Yeah, oh, wow. What was that?
That's just my speaker. This is a high drama time, Mike.
Boy, it really is. Joining us now is still Congressman Steve King. Now, are you going to relinquish your seat on January 20th, or are you going to fight to the end?
Well, actually, it formally ended at noon on the 3rd of January.
Oh, so you're Steve now.
I am. I'm Steve now. So you can treat me like one of the boys.
Well, I always kind of did, but I had to respect your office, of course. Yeah, there's, I don't know if it's high drama, but I was just saying before I picked up the phone and you were there that it's disgraceful that Capitol Hill police have to draw their weapons after some supporters of President Trump came crashing through a glass door and actually wound up on the congressional floor. That's not how we do things in the United States, not to my frame of mind. What do you think of what's happening in Washington, D.C. now?
Well, I'm trying to keep up with it, and I know I haven't seen all the most current scenes yet, Mike, but what I do see is a crowd that's estimated somewhere around 100,000 people that have stormed up on the steps and on the west side of the Capitol, on the south side of the Capitol. And when we had 40 to 60,000 people there demonstrating against Obamacare, they didn't have that many people get that far. And we had a lot of folks that were there. I also look at the crowd, and I had said earlier today, they're Tea Party type people. Don't worry about violence. Well, that lasted a couple of hours after I said it. And so we don't know who, but I just got off the phone with an astute individual who said that he's concerned that they will put people into this crowd that will perpetrate violence, and they might be from the opposite side of the aisle. That was his concern. I don't allege that. It's just something to put one eye on while we watch the rest. But if this can shut down the proceedings in the Capitol, and it has, there's who knows where this goes from here. But I do not object to the people that are there demonstrating. And, if they've been calling these violent protests for the better part of the day, and I've been wondering, what was the label they used on the protests in Portland, Seattle, Minneapolis?
Oh, yeah, they were
Detroit?
peaceful protesters. That was a lot of nonsense. I understand that. I mean, but I was always proud of our side, so to speak, that we didn't indulge in that sort of nonsense, and our political leaders wouldn't make excuses for it either. The mayor of Portland, the governor of Oregon are disgrace. And so is the mayor of Seattle, in a lot of places, in Minneapolis, where they allowed these sorts of dangerous things to go on. And
well, no, that's right, Mike. And you know, another observation that I have though is that I've had so much information poured into me about irregularities in the election in multiple states, and I have. My legislative director is the sharpest person that I've had work for me, and I've had some really sharp ones. Went home to Pittsburgh, where she had kept her voter residence there, legal residence there, so she could vote, and she worked the polls, and she stayed for a week during the counting. And she told me a couple of things that, in addition to all the things we've seen in the media here, one of them was that she had seen pallets of ballots, and no one knew where they came from. And the second thing was there's two counties on opposite sides of the state line between Western Pennsylvania and Ohio that have been a match set politically forever. Whether they go Democrat or Republican, purple counties. This time the Ohio county went with a single-digit margin for Trump, and the Pennsylvania county went something like 32 points for Biden. And she said that just can't happen. All her life, she's lived there and known about that, and that can't happen. So I see this, and I've seen enough to confirm to me that there are multiple places out there where votes were stolen, and I believe that, and I think I'm objective about it. These folks here have had no recourse. They haven't been able to get a look at the ballots themselves, or some of that information has been destroyed. The courts refuse to hear the case, as far as I know. No court has evaluated any of these cases on the merits. And so when you get down to the place where the United States Supreme Court took a pass and decided they were not going to hear the case that was brought by Texas, then they said to the rest of the country, a single state or a series of states can have, I'll say, election fraud and irregularities and impose their will, not the will of the people within that, not the will of the people within the state, but the people who control the elections in the state, impose their will on the rest of the country. And so what you're seeing here is when there's no legitimate due process, and at least within the perception of the people, that's why they're in Washington today. And if it brings out anything, it needs to bring out the kind of changes so that there will be a legitimate due process in the future.
Who do you think is responsible for stealing these votes?
Well, it's a series of different entities that are there. But I mean, I'd have to back this up, Mike. In the year 2000, I was the chairman of the Iowa Senate State Government Committee, and I spent 37 days digging deeply into election fraud. I never wanted Iowa to be like Florida was, counting hanging chads. And I found a lot of election fraud just myself, searching the internet and in the communications that I had. So I have, and I passed legislation off the floor of the Senate that would have fixed a lot of it, prevented anything in Iowa. And we've been pretty good here in Iowa. I'm not alleging we weren't. But the multiple places that are there, who's in charge or who's responsible. You have people that are being bused across state lines to vote, people that vote twice, people that vote for dead people, ballots that are, so who's in charge? What I'm surprised at is nobody has come clean. And I just can't believe that these irregularities are rooted in a political movement. And especially when you look at the multiple counties where Biden ran behind Hillary and behind Obama in the 2008, 12, and 16 elections, and in almost every county across the country, except for the key counties that are high population Democrat counties. And so, who's behind it? The machine. It's the machine, and I know enough from doing battle with them that they don't need to have a team meeting. That they follow each other by instinct. And then, that's what I believe it is. But we board up windows and you push the poll watchers away. Multiple states stop voting at the same time in the middle of the night, and that's when hundreds of thousands of ballots or votes, I'm not even sure they were ballots, appeared. And so you can look at you can ask what the source is, and it's the network. And how many methods did they have? Many. That's what I believe. And
Well, are there specific individuals that you can name that are responsible for organizing something this big?
well, I could utter a name or two, Mike, but I don't think I should.
All right.
Because when you do that, you're indicting somebody publicly, and I know the impacts of that. So
yes, that's right. But if we could put a face on some of these people and a name, I mean, if that was something like that had to happen if President Trump was going to prevail. And the fact of the matter is that hasn't happened. So here we are now now a report has just come in that a woman has been shot in the neck in this Capitol building. This is insanity. I don't know who was responsible for it. No one has said. But this isn't where we wanted to be. I'm sure it isn't.
That's an awful turn of events. And, I've been in the middle of those huge crowds of tens of thousands and never felt a bit of fear. I only feared that I couldn't walk through them because they all wanted to talk. And so I didn't have enough time to do all those conversations, and I ran around the outside edge instead. But I don't know what the circumstances are either. The woman's been shot, or we don't know who pulled the trigger. I did not at all expect that to happen. I didn't expect any glass to be broken into the chambers. I didn't expect the Capitol to be stormed in the fashion that it is. So we're in a new place in our history. Nothing like this has happened before that I know of, and we set a new historical standard in fighting Obamacare when we had a human ring all the way around the Capitol. That had never happened before, and it wasn't just a chain with enough hands to reach all the way around. I called it a human donut with 6 to 8 people deep, all in a circle all the way around the Capitol. That's the only time that Capitol has been surrounded by we the people that I know of. This looks to me like it's an order of magnitude several times greater than what we did with Obamacare.
Congressman Steve King, or former Congressman now, Steve King is our guest. We'll get off what's happening in Washington, D.C. and talk about a book that you have written. Do you have a title for the book?
It is. It's called Walking Through the Fire, Mike.
Okay.
And a lot of people are going to know what that fire really is. But the rationale behind it is this, that Andrew Breitbart was a good and close personal friend. And he would say, walk towards the fire, walk towards the fire. Their bullets aren't real. They just want to shut you up. And so they call you names and try to intimidate you. But their bullets aren't real. And I walked towards the fire. All right. And I got so deep into that fire that it came back around behind me and me. And the best way out was to walk on through. So I had to walk through the fire. I came out and I call it Slightly Singed. And that's the title of the book, but it tells a bit of the story of my early life, just enough to lay the foundation for this. Lays out the chronology of what happened here in Iowa and at the national level, and who the players were that, and I'll say this straight out, who conspired to remove me from public office because of their own motivations, and there were multiple motivations. Some had to do with the presidential race here in Iowa and in the nation. The establishment people want to be able to control that nomination process. I go pretty deeply into that. Some of it was the open borders, pro-amnesty people. Some were the people who posed as pro-lifers but don't want to actually solve and stop the abortion of innocent babies. And you could go on with this, but there was a committee staff person that I hadn't really gotten very close to, but he'd been kind of in a similar orbit for 18 years. He wrote this piece to me that stuck in my mind, and he said that I've been on the hottest part of the battlefield in every major political fight for 18 years. And what happens is that the left and the media will tear a person down, and at a certain point, your own team, your own leadership will pile on. And he said it was extraordinary that I could be in the hottest part of the battlefield and fearlessly defend our principles and values and last for 18 years in that arena. So I take his words to be, they resonated well with me, or I wouldn't remember them, of course. And the book explains that. And it's got players in it that are the leaders within Iowa Republican politics, and also at the national level, including Kevin McCarthy and Liz Cheney and others. So it's, I read it back through again. It's very interesting to me, of course, but I think Iowans that pay attention to politics are going to want to understand, how did this happen, and what were the motivations, and what did the folks that did this seek to gain? And they started it about 4 years ago, not just a couple of years ago. And so, and by the way, I would ask people, all the labels that have been put on me, I've never met anybody that even knew anybody as bad as they painted me to be.
Yeah, I got a little crazy there for a while. There's no doubt.
and on top of that is all of the reporters that they sent into Iowa out of places like the New York Times, the Washington Post, Huffington Post, the Weekly Standard. You can go on and on. That all those reporters were sent in to try to find somebody that knew me, that they could quote to smear me, and they always came up empty. They get a standard Democrat quote, but that was it, because nobody that ever knew me ever believed any of that anyway.
Well, I never did.
What's that, Mike?
I said I never did.
Oh, okay. Well, you know me, and I think that's one thing that I appreciate about people, is that they'll just consistently say, we always got the straight truth, and I don't hold back. I want people to know. And because the decisions that have to be made sometimes in the heat of the battle, like is going on in Washington right now, you'd better have some confidence in the person that's making those decisions on your behalf. And the only way you can do that is to just be straight with people. And I know that there were times when I had bad news for people, and I just went out and told them, this is the way it looks, and this is what I think is going to happen. And, somebody else might just duck that and let the news leak out and not tie their name to the memory of the bad news. But I have the responsibility to deliver the bad news and the good news. And I've been fighting this culture war for 24 years in public life. Now it looks to me like America's getting geared up to actually go to battle on the culture war itself now. And so that work over the last 24 years is going to look better and better as things unfold here politically in this country.
Steve King, former Congressman Steve King. It'll take me a while to get used to saying that former congressman thing. But you don't have a publisher yet for your book.
That's right. I had one, but he turned out to be all hat and no cattle.
Uh-oh.
So yeah, and I didn't figure he was going to be able to get this done, and I had to make that change. And so now I'm in negotiations along the way, and hopefully we'll get this thing lit up. It will go ink on page, and I'll be out pushing the book, but COVID quarantine slows that down anyway. So I want to make sure I get the right publisher who will do the right job. And I just have to have the truth out there, and it's the only place that one can find it.
What is your future? How do you see your future, Congressman King? You're a man past 70 years old, not much older than me, a year or two. But how do you see your future?
Well, I want to continue and have a voice in public policy. I can't pull myself out of it, and so I'll do a little radio around the horn here and there, and I'll write and try to sell books here for the next half a year or so, and we'll see what happens. But I also, I'm in a place where I don't need to do anything, and I've got 8 grandchildren within 10 miles of my house that are growing up so fast. So my pace will be a little slower, but I'm still going to be involved in public policy and weighing in on these issues that matter. And on top of this, Mike, I think the experience of serving in Congress gets undervalued, and in that. You just add this up. The administration asked me what countries I've been to and how many, and that's the only reason I know the answer to that. But I had to do it when they were putting together their appointments when Trump was elected, and that came up to 70 different countries. And so that's a pretty good look at the world. And it's almost always been at some of the highest levels within each of those countries. And that's given me a real good look at so many aspects of the American influence globally. And as deeply as I've been involved in agriculture and all those years on the Judiciary Committee and chairing the Constitution Subcommittee of the Judiciary Committee, the experiences have been extremely informative. And some things you just can't learn from a book. You have to live it in order to feel the rhythm and the pulse of it all.
Well, that's the truth.
So I want to. I don't want to just shut that off. Whatever I've got is that background. I want to be able to help our state and our country with it.
Sir, we have to go. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate it.
It's 3:00, KVFD Fort Dodge.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
This is a Fox News alert. Protesters have stormed the U.S. Capitol. I'm Dave Anthony. And it's not just the outside.
People are getting hurt. Anyone involved in this, if you're hearing me, hear me very loud and clear. This is not the American way.
House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy just told Fox he heard shots were fired and indeed a woman was hit and injured and taken to a hospital.
This must stop now.
This is the most significant breach of an American government institution since the Battle of Bladensburg, August 24th, 1814, when the British came and burned the Capitol and also burned the White House. We have never had an instance of an incursion inside the U.S. Capitol building to this degree since that time. You have people taking over the House chamber, the Senate chamber.
Fox's Chad Pergram. Lawmakers went into hiding before evacuations like GOP Congressman Adam Kinzinger.
We don't do stuff like this, and it's insane, and the president's tweets have been insane.
President Trump did tweet, "Please support our Capitol Police, stay peaceful." Earlier, he told a rally of Trump-supporting protesters,
"We're going to walk down to the Capitol, and we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women,"
urging them to object today to the certification of President-elect Biden's victory. Fox's Rachel Sutherland has more live.
That's right, Dave. The protesters did disrupt the count of Electoral College votes during what was supposed to be a joint session of Congress. It all fell apart right after the first objection was lodged to the